Hey guys, welcome back to the Black Hills and Eastern Railroad. Today we're going to take a look at those tomato cages we put up in detail a few weeks ago. And I guess we'll take a look at a little garden update here for you. So we got done putting preen down around these tomatoes. We mulched them in here a couple of weeks ago. Actually bought bag mulch from the box store, Home Depot. Had uncolored or not dyed mulch, 40-pound bags. I believe it was $3.50 a bag. We got our tomato cages set up like I showed you, bending them here in that one episode with the 445s. I got those stood up and got our T-posts in. And I wanted to take you a look at, or wanted to show you exactly what we're doing here. So this first tomato is a, I believe, a Roma. It's a determinate value or determinate style plant. Beth bought this one, and I've been buying indeterminate plants so they grow up tall. Determinate tomatoes, if you don't know, they all kind of, they're predetermined what size they're going to be. Sort of patio tomatoes, I guess, if you will. And the fruit tends to come all at one time. I didn't happen to notice that there is a single tomato on this plant, so that may be our first Roma that we end up eating this season. The remainder of them, we've got these here, I believe, are Amish paste tomatoes. We're going to use those for our pizza sauce. These here, and then we've got San Marzano Romas. Those are another indeterminate style plant. They'll hopefully fill up this cage all the way to the top. I believe that's 8 feet up there. And then we've got we're trying this time a tomatillo, just for an experiment. Beth bought that. Then we've got a couple of more San Marzano Roma plants, and then some Sweet 100 cherries over here. And you can see those cages standing up nice and tall. I didn't end up wiring these together. I've not done that for a couple of years. One year I used wire, like a real light electric fence type wire. Didn't find that necessary. And another year I used zip ties, and I just have not found that necessary, even in these high winds. We've got these buried quite a ways down into the ground. It seems to work really well. So that's kind of it for the tomatoes. We're going to go take a look at cabbage, broccoli, peppers, bell peppers, and jalapenos. We decided to kind of simplify this year, just to sweet peppers, or excuse me, we've got jalapenos, sweet peppers, and bell peppers here, or sweet banana peppers, I should say. And we're trying to nurse back to health a couple of I call them zebra grasses, but I think they're porcupine grass. Actually, they call them at the nursery. I don't know how I started calling them zebra grass. And then we've got some, anyway, we're trying to nurse those back to health. We put them in up by there's a telecommunications box in the front of the house, and they didn't weather over the winter, and I'm not sure why exactly. They were buried in snow most of the time. Maybe they're USDA Zone 4, Zone 5. There's another plant that we've got up to the house, and up next to the house here, porcupine grass, that's done just fine. So I'm not sure what's going on with these two. We're going to try and get them to grow this season. I'm pretty sure the one is dead. The other one, you can see those green sprigs sticking up there. Maybe that one will end up working out. I'm not sure. Then our vine crops, we've got some winter squash here. We've got some summer squash that's not come up yet. I need to take a look at what's going on with that. And of course, the cucumbers that you, in the summer here in South Dakota, the style of those is you bag those up and take those over to the neighbors, ring the doorbell, and run away. There ends up being more of those than we can use typically. Beth has made in the past sweet pickle relish. That's worked out pretty well. But we'll see how they produce this year. And then of course some corn, beans over there that need to be replanted, and the main thing is the firewood that's curing over there in the pile. There's 2 years worth there. We hope to. And of course the firewood that's there in the pile, there's 2 years worth or 2 seasons worth. The last of this was put up last fall, or actually last summer. There's a lot of maple in that south pile, towards where you see that yellow preen container. That's the new part. I think between those two towers is 1 year. It's probably actually quite more than 1 year there, but we'll see how that goes. We'll see how cold of a winter it is. So preen is the pre-emergent herbicide that we put down. So basically what that does is once you got up what's growing, or once you've got what you want planted, growing and sprouted up like these beans here, then you can apply the preen, and that prevents all the weeds from coming up in between. Hopefully we get a better stand of beans than what we've got here. And we've got a linden tree here that didn't come back, mostly didn't come back. It was kind of weird last year, the year before. It had real small leaves on it. I gave it some water. I know they like to be wet, and right here on the corner of the garden, maybe it doesn't always get wet. And then the other thing that happened is the trunk got hit with the mower here a few years ago, and you can see that little divot that's come out of there. That probably inhibits the tree's ability to uptake moisture and nutrients. It's mostly healed, and it did pretty well a couple of years after that, but it looks like we've got some tree work to do here on the property. We've been discussing what variety. I'm kind of angling towards something that we don't already have here. We have a bunch of maples. We have 4 red oaks. We kind of want something that doesn't exist here, maybe a pin oak, maybe something that does well obviously in southeast South Dakota. Hackberry. Beth wants another flowering crab, but I'd rather have something that gives a little more shade than that. And also the consideration here, of course, is being right next door to this wood pile. We'd maybe like something maybe that doesn't do quite as well, or doesn't grow quite as fast, because this is obviously the sunny, warm, windy part of the yard, and we like to keep it that way. Then we've got our strawberry planter that I put in here several years ago. This is actually our second planting of strawberries here. You see a couple of volunteer asparagus plants coming up. I've left those be. Someday, I don't know whether we'll actually end up transplanting those down into our asparagus patch. Whatever, someday they'll be delicious, but I'm leaving them alone. They're not like they're grass or dandelions growing up there or something that I'd want to get rid of. They're good plants, and I like to keep them around. And then of course the asparagus patch here, we're starting to play out a little bit. Some of the sprigs are getting pretty small, leaving those to grow up and feed the roots for next spring. If we watered down here, they might be doing a little better than they did now, or they do now. But we don't really, it's a ways away from the house, so kind of tough to get a lot of water down here. Maybe it should be that we bring a soaker, or set some kind of a soaker up along these. We do have some spears to pick here though, the way it looks. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And we do have some volunteer asparagus that I've transplanted into these spaces in between the rhubarb. This rhubarb has never done very well down here. I'm not sure if it's soil deficiency or whatever, but we really don't need rhubarb at this point. So I'm kind of leaving it be a little bit. Anyway, the deal on the asparagus, I'll show you this here. These are the sprigs that I just picked. They kind of want to let you, or they kind of want you to leave any spears that are smaller than your pinky finger. So basically what you're doing is you're leaving those smaller spears to grow up and make big plants to feed the roots. And then, like I said, the roots are what push up the stuff we're going to eat next spring. Like for example, this little guy here is pretty small. I think we're going to leave him. And then all these others, I guess that little one in there, that's probably, we could probably take that one. And you snap it off next to the ground. And it doesn't look like there's much more down here. What's that? We've got a peach tree here that didn't come back. We've got actually 3 peach trees. These are the Contender variety. We tried Reliance peaches from my dad's place. He had actually peaches that descended from a tree that was growing really well in Sioux Falls. Again, the Reliance variety. That was at approximately, well, 22nd Minnesota or so. Well shaded, or well shielded from the winter winds and things. And obviously we find that the climate is a little bit different even being reasonably short distance from Sioux Falls, we find that typically we're solidly zone 3 here where we're at, and sometimes Sioux Falls is really more zone 4. So we thought we could rely on these peaches. These contender peaches are supposed to be zone 3, but we had a spate of days, I think it was 3 or 4 days, that we had 90 degrees in April, and then it was down to like 23. Probably what happened is these trees got soft and then got bit by hard cold again. So we're going to have to figure out what to do. We've checked around to the various greenhouses in Sioux Falls in that area and have been unsuccessful to find live peach trees that are the contender variety. So we're going to have to do something different. I know I've got some pits that I might try and plant. We'll update you on that as we get something figured out. And then finally, our oak tree. Raising oak trees in southeast South Dakota is a crapshoot kind of sometimes. Our soils aren't very good. They like a lot of iron in their soil, and we just don't have the right conditions. But I've been dumping chelated iron on this tree, actually on the root ball. And they don't like to be watered too much either. They like to be moist but not wet. And that's kind of one of the contributing factors. If you got yellowing leaves that are not fully dark and green, you like to see an oak tree have real dark, big green leaves, and that's what this one finally is for the first time. And since this tree has been on our property, actually, and again, that chelated iron product, I believe, has helped us quite a little in that regard. A little bonus material here. These are our Saskatoon berries. We actually had enough fruit off of here to have a couple of pies last year, but the rabbits got hungry this winter and there wasn't a lot to eat, so they ate a lot of bark, and these were available. They suffered a lot of damage. We pruned them back. They've come back quite a little since we pruned. You can see a lot of green new growth in here. The pie last summer was delicious. These are actually native bush Saskatoon berries. Southern Saskatchewan, central Saskatchewan is where these things come from, and they work out pretty well in South Dakota, southeast South Dakota, because they're hardy. We've got a couple of berries growing here this year, but we honestly don't expect a lot from these plants this year. I believe that'll about wrap it up for this episode. We will update you certainly as the tomatoes progress and we move into pizza sauce canning. If you like the content here, go ahead and give us a like, comment with any questions you've got, and if I'm lucky, we'll see you in the next one. Thanks, everyone.